Today we are here with Siddh. It is episode 22. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. Excited to talk about business and entrepreneurship today.
Of course. All right, so for the people that don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, happy to kind of dive into it. My name is Siddh Akolia. I'm 21 years old. I've been running businesses since I was 12. And over the years, we've kind of pivoted multiple times, had failed businesses, had, in theory, successful ones. And now what I work on today is Viper. It's a product in the live event ticketing space. We pretty much operate like a hedge fund where we trade pricing inefficiencies and trade secondary markets and concert tickets. And it's what I'm looking to kind of build going in the next couple of years. And this is a pivot from what we used to do is reselling concert tickets as a primary to secondary business. And I'm really excited to work on it, and it should be kind of fun running over the next couple months, and kind of excited to see where it goes. But happy to kind of dive into my story of all the different businesses. But I've learned a lot really over the last couple of years, and it's been really fun to be where I'm at now as a senior in college, going full time with it.
Sweet. All right, so before we dive into that, what are some other startups that you've done?
So I've always been in the arbitrage game. That's kind of where I've been if I've got $200, it's easier for me to take $200, start a business when it comes to doing arbitrage, invest that $200, and see an immediate return. When it comes to building a Silicon Valley startup, it could be years before in raising capital, burn rate, and it gets too complex. And when I was 12, I was just like, I have $200, I can buy a pair of sneakers, Yeezy, Boost 350 V2s. I remember the Bread 2.0s that they did. I could buy them for $220, which I did, and then I flipped them the same day for $450 on StockX. And that's where it all started. And it really all started with the sneaker reselling stuff, and that community as a whole, which I ended up doing for over 3 or 4 years, going from 12 until even when I was 17, I was still in touch with a lot of these guys, 18, reselling sneakers here and there. But that business starting off was really what gave me the cash flow and the cash I needed to go in and start other businesses. But my journey kind of goes from sneaker reselling is the first business we started, and then pivoting into Amazon FBA, where Amazon FBA, we were working with wholesale suppliers, doing online arbitrage, doing retail arbitrage in person at Nike outlet stores, and that business was really fun. We grew it to doing $4 million in revenue, and it was a super low margin business where we got squeezed by Amazon fees and Amazon marketplaces, storage fees, all the different fees that they have across the channel. Yeah. And with increased competition, it's driving prices down. And that business was great on paper because of revenue, but in reality, we were maybe turning over 5 to 7% net margin, and so it really was time for us to go in and move on. And while in between the sneaker reselling and the Amazon FBA, I did a business with sports car collectibles. Got really deep into that. It was a really fun game, but I did enjoy opening boxes way too much, and which was gambling at that point. And it wasn't too profitable then with me opening up a lot of the cars that we were getting. But it was a really fun business working with the collectible side of things, and that kind of gave me almost an added extension of knowledge of how arbitrage works in a different industry, completely different than sneakers.
Yeah.
And then Amazon FBA is what we ran, and then freshman year coming into Indiana is when we shifted from doing sneaker reselling and all of that. I got introduced to the ticket game and been doing that since freshman year all the way till being a senior right now.
Sweet. Okay, so let's dive into each one of those. Before this podcast, I didn't know they did Amazon FBA. And doing $4 million in revenue is really impressive, even if it is 5 to 7% margins. And then for the boxes with packs that you're open, what kind of packs were those?
So my really just favorite company when it came to cards at that time, it still is Topps. And Topps just has always had a really high quality product. And some of the boxes they offer when it came to their Topps Chrome Sapphire boxes, they had an F1 collab that they did where they made Topps Chrome Sapphire and Topps Chrome boxes, hobby boxes. And ripping those was the best time ever. I love F1, and kind of going in and opening those cards, and the dopamine hit of hitting really big cards was insane. I hit a 1 out of 5 max for Verstappen, which I sold for $8,500 at the time after I got it graded, thinking I hit it big. And then I found out the next guy who bought it off me ended up selling it for over $100,000.
What the?
Dude,
how long after?
Literally, I heard back. Literally a month and a half, 2 months later, they ended up selling for $100,000, and I was sick.
No way.
And that's the reason I realized I wasn't too good at the card stuff.
Dude, Well, that's wild. And that industry has been popping recently.
It's insane, dude. The Pokemon stuff, and I mean, those boxes, like, they are expensive boxes when you're opening. Like, the Top Coat Sapphire boxes were going for roughly like $1K to $1,500 at the time, and like the regular Top Coat boxes ended up going for $2 to $3K at its peak. And when I was opening them, they were worth like $500-$600.
Wow.
And so it just goes to show how markets move up and down. I mean, that was kind of the fuel though that led to the businesses down the line. Of I understood that, whoa, me buying from, you know, Tops and then opening these boxes, trying to buy boxes, you know, from other like card shops and all that stuff, and like trying to open them and like doing breaks and all that stuff, like it's a viable-ish business. But I was gambling. But the real value is these guys who at the time were buying up these boxes, putting them in a little storage room, and then literally waiting 3 or 4 months once supply dwindled down, and then they were selling them for literally like, I saw that market go from like $600-$700 up to $3K, and like, I kid you not, we had opened by that. I'd opened by that time like 15 boxes.
Wow.
Sick to my stomach by far. And like, I was making money because those cars that we were opening, like I was sending a lot of them to get graded, and then like flipping them back on eBay. But it was a really cool business, but it was really hard to figure out like how much we were actually making. I thought I was making money, but it was more just like, you can't like, doing the accounting for like, okay, you open a box of cards, you gamble on it, then you get all these cards, what are their values, and you have to grade them, what grades come back from PSA or Beckett, any of the grading providers. And it's like, it was a gambling game. And I mean, I think it was more just like a passion type of business, a lifestyle business at the end of the day. And, you know, it was a great hobby, but definitely had to move on from it for sure.
Yeah. Wow. That is so interesting. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into the sneaker reselling. So you mentioned getting into it with this like one pair of Yeezys, which I remember in middle school was like the shoes to have.
100%.
So then how did you go from flipping that first pair to scaling it and flipping many pairs?
I think the thing is like back in that day, like it was the community aspect of it. A lot of the people that I know and are in my network now who have built really cool businesses come from kind of the sneaker Twitter that used to exist back in the day, of these guys who are all like just around the world connected through Twitter and like Discord, who were buying up sneakers when they were 12 or 13 years old or 14, 15. And they were using, you know, bots and things like that existed back in the day of like Splash Force, using BNB, like all these different like programs and all that stuff. And it created these communities. And that was like the biggest thing is like, when it came to scaling the business, like what you had to do was just talk to other people in the industry, make friends on like literally online. And that was the coolest thing is like, eventually like down the line you come in, like you meet these people. And even like last night, ran into a really good friend who goes to Indiana as well, like same community I kind of came from. And we were all like 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, like flipping sneakers online using our parents' credit cards because we couldn't get approved for shit. And we all like just were, you know, in that community, and everybody helped each other out, which was really cool. And for as competitive as it was, and being that it was, you know, kind of a zero-sum game where if someone wins, another person doesn't get a pair of sneakers, people were really helpful. And I think that was the biggest part of it, is like we were all young kids just trying to flip sneakers to make a profit. And I think that's what made scaling really easy, where it was like, you know, you had to get credit cards, you had to get virtual cards, and all that stuff kind of down the line of like understanding how proxies work. And kind of building that out was a really fun business for sure.
You were probably in the same Discord group as a couple of my friends.
100%.
They were like all over that. Was there a bot called like Valor?
Yeah.
Dude,
I remember Valor.
Yeah.
I think the dev was a little crazy, but I remember Valor. I know I like all familiar faces and all that stuff that have used it. I never got to use it, but I remember Valor being a thing. I think it was like foot sites, like Foot Locker, Finish Line, and that type of stuff.
Oh yeah. So I think that's such an interesting business because the demand for the product that you're selling is already there.
100%.
Like the way I think about any business is you have like selling the product and like fulfillment of the product, but this one almost breaks it because like the demand for the product's already there. So it's really acquiring the product is the difficult part, and then selling the product, it just sells for the price it does.
Yeah, and I mean I think that pivots like breaks down to like all these arbitrage businesses that exist, whether it's your arbitraging Airbnbs, it's like, you know, there's proven demand, and I think the biggest part is it's hard to find the supply and have it be consistent. But like for me, it's like those businesses have been the best because I found out that like we can always figure out how to get, you know, the supply. But as long as there's demand there, I don't need to go in and market test or figure out if this business is viable. And I think that's what makes scaling it super easy, and that's what makes, once you figure out the formula, it's just, plugging in and chugging it, just trying to figure out, well, how do you scale up? And those businesses just always made sense. And I mean, made sense to me, and it's not, it's not the sexy super Silicon Valley business that's raising, a $4 million seed round, or it's not, the next OpenAI, but it's just as viable of a business as, running an HVAC company or just, running something else. And even though it might not last as long, it's definitely, it's just been super fun.
I mean, it churns out cash flow. So,
and that's a problem you can solve. And I mean, there's some problems that are much, much harder to solve than cash flow.
Going back to the beginning with the sneaker reselling.
Yeah.
Started with $200 to $450 in one day with a pair of Yeezys.
Yeah.
What do you estimate your total revenue to be by the time you switched businesses?
I think with sneakers, it was really hard to track, but I know we did like $100,000 in like StockX sales roughly by the time year two was almost over, and like that was like an insane business of like kind of like reinvesting in like just every single dollar I'd throw straight back in inventory, and we just flip over and over again. I mean, that's kind of what I've done with all of our businesses, and now that like we're in a comfortable boat, I've started to like tap into lending and like figuring out how we can leverage kind of more cash to be able to get better returns. And I think the one thing is too, like, taking this away, like if you were going out there right now and building a business, I think a lot of business advice online is like talking about how you can leverage, business LLC, open up business cards and all this stuff. But I think at a fundamental level, you should have the idea of what, if you're building a business, you should have some sort of cash that you are willing to risk to be able to see your business become viable. And I think that's the most important part. It's when you look at like all these guys on, like when it comes to building a business early on, and like some student founders I've talked to as well, they're like, oh, I've gotten advice like open a business LLC, open up business credit cards, and put the debt on these cards.
All that stuff is irrelevant. Like
100%.
More or less. Form an LLC. Okay, now you can do business.
Agreed.
Like,
it's the issue breaks down to, I think too many people ask for permission to go in and build these businesses. They think that you have to ask for permission. You got to get the LLC. All these things need to be, it's got to be 70 degrees out. The sun's got to be out for you to start a business.
Anytime is the right time.
Anytime's the right time. It doesn't need to be 72 and sunny, and it doesn't need to. You don't need to have everything set up for you. You don't need to have all the agreements, all the contracts, all, your entire business plan written out in 52 pages to go in and execute. I think the beauty of it is like starting really young, I didn't know what a business plan was. And so it was just like you test and you figure out. And I think that's one thing too, is like, seeing students now go and start a business and working with a couple of them. Like I've seen like, I think the biggest thing is like even being an entrepreneurship major, it's important to write out business plans, all this thing. It's important for the fundamentals of a business. But in reality, it's like learning how to swim. You can teach someone how to do the motions, but I think you got to just jump into the water and see if you can float.
Totally. So I agree with that so heavily. And I kind of compare a business plan to the Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a business plan until they get punched in the face. Like the second you get out there, you're going to realize, oh, well, this part of the business plan doesn't work.
Exactly.
Like you're going to have to pivot so many times when you're jumping
100%.
into it. And another thing from the people I see like giving business advice online, a lot of it is so generalized, when a lot of times you got to pick an industry, go into it, and you have to find out industry specific knowledge on how to 100%. Do well in it.
And I mean, I think the quote's great, dude. Like you go in and like, when you start a business, like I think people think like long term, like, oh, by year 5 we're going to be doing this, year 4 we're going to be doing this, year 1 we're going to be doing this. Like, you don't really know. Like, I kid you not, across all the business I've built, there's not been a day where I'm like, I have an idea of what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have an idea what's happening this week. Do I have any idea of like, what the full like business plan over the long run looks like? I try to pretend like, we're working on stuff that's long term, but it's like the reality is being a really good entrepreneur, you have to be able to just go in and understand that it is not ever going to always all be in your favor, and you have to learn to pivot. And I think the business advice people give online is kind of really, really just generic of like, you go build a business, like, work hard, all this stuff. Like, but really, like, to get the real business advice you want, it's making that industry connection and having like a network that you can go to and ask questions. And
Right.
I think that's really important. Even in some of those competitive industries, you can still go and have a network. And
Mhm.
even on that point too, is like you'd be shocked at the number of people, like, even though I work in a very hyper, niche industry, specific industry, I've gotten really good business advice from people that run like a social media marketing agency. And I don't even do any marketing. But like the advice they give me on like how to handle like, do my accounting, whether it's, advice I got with how to manage employees, how to manage a team, and how to lead better. Like that type of advice really, really is helpful. And it's like, it could come from anyone, but that's the thing. It's like, it's that quote. It's like, everyone's worth a cup of coffee. Like everyone's worth listening to and not having, some sort of like ego of like, oh, what do they know about what I do? And it's like their advice, even though they don't have direct experience, they've probably gone through similar things that they could talk to you about and help you get through.
Yeah, that's what's so valuable about this space, IO Innovates.
100%.
And a lot of those guys giving business advice online haven't done shit.
100%.
So,
and I mean, there's definitely good ones, and I mean that do exist. The very kind of rare breed of entrepreneurs who have built businesses, killed it, and guys who I come to mind are like the Andy Frisell, and like I don't watch a lot of Alex Hormozy, but like I've heard good things from people who listen to a lot of his podcasts, that I've listened to a few of them, and I think some of the advice they give is really good. But I think really like those guys give advice on how do you like structure yourself mentally to prepare for what it looks like to run a business.
right.
They're not going to give you advice of, okay, you want to start, a social media marketing business. How do you start it? Nobody's ever going to give you that advice. And if they do, they're selling you a course. And that advice is just too like, they'll give you a 30-page document on how to start a business. But it's your path from 0 to 100 isn't going to follow some write-up online. Mm-hmm. And I think the beauty of it all is like, if as an entrepreneur, you can mentally kind of prepare yourself for the fact that there's no GPS, there's no Apple CarPlay that gets you to this destination. You have to understand that you have to be reactive to the ups and downs, when things go your way and when things don't. And the fact of the matter is, it's just every single day. Like, last month we haven't had the best month ever. But every single day I would work just as hard as I did the day before or a year before when things were insane. And even the month before when things were going really, really well. And I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just like, you can't overdo it when it comes to business. All you can do is every single day you wake up, you get the things that you need to get done. You work just as hard as you did the day before. And if not, you work even harder. And I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of these guys online who I think do the advice right, is they're trying to mentally prepare entrepreneurs to just stay consistent day by day. Because we'll have weeks that make our month, and then we'll have a week where it literally kills our entire month. And like the ups and downs, I think, are the biggest part of it all. Is just how can you teach like the younger generation of entrepreneurs in an age of social media and instant dopamine to understand that being consistent day by day is how you build a long-lasting, successful business. And it's not going to be, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like Cal Shoe where you throw $50 down and maybe if Lady Gaga comes and performs, you make 100. Like, it's not going to be like that. And I think that's what the real issue is especially, like this space and people I've worked with, I've just preached, I'm like, listen, your time will come. It doesn't need to be tomorrow. It doesn't need to be next week. It could be 3 months from now. But as long as you work hard, every single day, you kind of create your own luck that your time will come.
Right. And back to, like, some entrepreneurs that go back and actually give real advice, they're not going to put it out in YouTube video. Like Alex Hormozy, I think he has some really good books. But there are also, like, way bigger founders that write really good books. Like,
100%.
There's this book by Brad Jacobs. He founded 6 public companies and wrote a book about it. The founders of Home Depot wrote a book. Founder of LinkedIn wrote a book. Like, they don't need to sell you a course for $4,000. They've built multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they're gonna tell you what they know for $10.
Yeah, and that's what's insane. Is like, how are you spending $4,000 on a course when they're selling this shit at Barnes and Nobles for $15? They're writing a book about their entire journey of the ups and downs, when they were tired, when shit didn't go their way, when things were really awful, and how they powered through that and they triumphed to go and build these giant companies. And they're doing it for $15 as like a way to give back. Because I've seen with a lot of entrepreneurs, they're really focused on, after they've done everything that they said they would, it's just like they want to give back and empower the next generation. And they're selling books for $15 at Barnes & Noble's. And, you have all these kids online with, the 911 GT3 RS going, yeah, buy my course, $4,000, I'll teach you, how to do, start a SMMA business or, start, being a copywriter. And, listen,
these are all the clickbait ones.
Sell courses. You can go rent the Lambo. You can do a lease to own on a Centenario and spend $40,000 a month on a car that you have no equity in. You can do all these things. As a big car guy, I know the Carrier motor car leases that people are doing out there, buying these Bugattis and spending $40K a month on a car, doing a lease to own deal, and it's all just part of the image. It's all this, it's fake. It's social media bullshit. You open your phone, pull it up, and it's all it's not real. Mm-hmm. It's not real. And you look back and people who've built real businesses, it's always been the same way. From when you look at the 1600s to you look at a guy like Henry Ford, look at all these insanely successful entrepreneurs over the course of decades. And what have they all done really well is they solved the problem, and they believed in it so much, and they would work every single day by day by day. And they weren't over expecting and trying to build, a $1 billion company overnight. They weren't looking to become, number one in what they did in a year, but they knew that their time would come. And I think that's super important when it comes to business, is because, as a generation we grew up with phones and constantly being on our phones, with notifications and gambling and all these kind of distractions. We're used to instant dopamine hits. And building a business is the complete opposite of that. It's day by day by day. It's Andy Frisell has this really good quote where I was listening to his podcast. It's every single day is a 0 and a 1 game. A 0 is you didn't get done what you said you would. A 1 is you got everything you said you would done. Yeah. And the way I do it is I have my notebook where I write down, all the things I got to get done today. And I go through that list every single day. I put on top of the page, I'm 0 or 1. And you stack that zeros and ones, and that's what's helped me build the confidence to go and be even when shit's not going my way, I'll pull my notebook and be listen, I did everything I said I would for the last 30 days. I know eventually it's going to work. And that's the biggest thing. It's just you kind of create that dopamine of just stacking days up and winning the 24-hour game, like Andy says, every single day. I like that. And that's how you build it up. And I think, yeah, man, it's sad to look at a generation where, a lot of people are gambling, a lot of people are gambling in different ways, gambling, on Cal Street, Poly Market, on sports betting apps, and it's
a real problem.
And it's a real problem, man. And I really hope that one day our society will move on from these really awful problems, man.
I think it's really tough because, at the beginning you were talking about how social media sort of distorts people's reality of what success is, and then you mentioned almost a deeper issue, which is social media creates all these dopamine hits, and it kills people's focus.
Exactly.
Me included, if I scroll for 10 minutes, it's hard to get back to really deep focus in whatever I was working on.
100%.
And you mentioned Henry Ford as well, another guy who wrote a really good book about, it's called My Life and Work. So he just talks about his life and business. He talks a lot about business.
No, I gotta give that a read. I had no idea he had a book out, dude.
It's short too. It's 90 pages. Yeah, he just gets right to the point.
And I mean, dude, going back to the point with the social media, I think it's really just, I really think that the word successful is really changed over the last really 20, 30 years. You ask someone in the 1800s what success looked like, and success back then was you had a stable job, you had stable income, you had a family, you had a nice house, you had a car, something like that back then. And I think success now is you see all these young kids driving, 17, 18, 19, 21 years old driving, I hate to, put myself out, make fun of myself on this, but driving, the BMW M3, but driving, the Lamborghini Huracan, the Aventador SVJ, driving cars that don't make any financial sense that someone could possibly afford at this young age, without hyper-specifics of it's hard to tell how they exactly got this car. What do they own their car for? And in my situation, I can be transparent, I got a really good deal on my car. That's the only reason I really bought it. But I bought it in cash. I knew I could easily, comfortably afford it. And my hobby is cars, so it was a justified kind of expense, and it motivated me to work harder. But I think the biggest thing is like, you look at, all these people online, especially like, you see the 911 GT3 RS, you see these kids posting up, how they're 18, 19 years old with that car before they can even drink. And it creates this false narrative that like, that is what success looks like. But really, the most successful people in our generation, probably right now, are still in school, barely figuring out how are they going to pay for drinks at the bar. Like, those are the kids that have no idea how successful they're just going to be down the line. And it's like, there's, social media creates this fantasy that success is, for kids our age, is you need to be 21 in Miami with a penthouse and a $500,000 car.
Yeah.
And that's not
You should say that to Nabil, because I'm not going to call him out too hard, but all he does is watch those guys in Miami with penthouses and they're 19 years old.
It's not it. I mean, I'm still in school, and we've been able to run a really successful business. We've done multiple 7 figures in revenue, and hoping this is the year that we break out and do 8 figures in revenue. And like, it's a really successful business, and I've really worked my ass off to go in and build it. But like, I'm still here in school because I love being a student. But those guys, like down there in Miami, they're trying to pitch you a lifestyle that, it doesn't really bring you real fulfillment. Like, real fulfillment doesn't come from running, making millions of dollars, or it doesn't come from, having the 911 GT3 RS and having, the iced out AP. It's all fake. It's, it's, and you talk to real entrepreneurs who've gone on to build stuff. A lot of these guys have found fulfillment by, writing the books, mentoring other people, helping out, solve real problems in the world. And, building the business was kind of their vessel to go in and, build that, nest egg up and have the financials to be able to go in and do the real things that like bring fulfillment, and like find a different type of form of fulfillment other than just running a business day in, day out. And I think that's where success has changed. Is like, you look at some of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation, like some of these guys built, insane companies, and like even Microsoft, and now they're, giving back, whether it's, the stuff they're doing with the government with, I think it was providing like, savings accounts for kids who are for newborns that like compound the markets over time. Like, it's like, those guys love running their businesses, and now for them the second form of fulfillment now is just like giving back, and like they've done well for themselves, but they want to help other people out. And I think that's what really success used to look like. And I think now when you open up your phone, you go on Instagram, you type it in, it's like, tap the Reels button, and it's all you see is just like events to SVJ in Miami, 19 years old. And I think that's where success is, it's distorted. But real success, really real success, I've learned this like since I was 12, learned from my dad especially, is just day in, day out, like having, the win stack up day by day. And I wasn't smart in school. I, was in all level 2 classes, like behind the learning kind of curve in middle school and like elementary school. And then, my parents were like, oh, like, why is like, what's going on? Like, like, is there something like, like they were like, is something going on or something like that with school? And like, it just, my incentives never aligned. Like, once I started running the business, I just really realized that I enjoyed winning. Like, whether it was doing well or drop, like, I just found kind of like winning and like being like, running a business and stuff was like a drug. And it's like everything I did, I want to give my 100% towards it. And that's where it started with, in high school, I started like leveling up in my classes, like went from like starting out in like all level 2 classes to taking AP and honors classes, like towards like all AP and all honors classes by senior year. And like, that whole stretch was like, don't get me wrong, I didn't like school, but it was just like, it was a game. It was like, if I can run a business, I should also like be able to go in and be smart in my classes and, do well on the SAT, do well and, get into a good school. And that's where I found kind of the love of the game, and competing at a love of the game was just like, I wanted to win in everything. And I think that's what really business does, is like, it's a 24/7 game that you're competing in. And it's every single day, whether you're sleeping or you're awake, someone out there is either trying to build the business you are or already running it, and you're competing against them. And it's like, in any business you run, there will always be competition. But it's just, I love the game. Every single day you wake up and you work hard, and it's just so rewarding.
That's exactly how I look at it. Like, entrepreneurship is a game. And it's the realest game there is, and it's the hardest game and most competitive game in the world.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how Mark Cuban explains it. Like, he was like, 24/7, there's going to be someone competing against you in the same business. So you have to kick their ass, or they're going to kick yours.
Yeah. And, there's nights I get 4 hours of sleep. I got back from a trip Tuesday morning, didn't sleep on the plane for over 15 hours, got back from the trip, and, went straight to the office, worked from 10:30 all the way till 2 a.m. in the morning, went to bed at 3, woke back up literally at like 7:30, was straight back to work. And it's like, the nights where you get, 3 to 4 hours, 5-6 hours of sleep, it doesn't even feel like I need more sleep. I don't feel tired because it's like, I already know I'm playing the game. Like, and I know I'm beating someone right now because I was able to do it on 4 hours of sleep, and I'm here ready to go. And that's how you build it up. It's the hardest game you'll ever play. And I think, no discredit to being an athlete, but, there's athletes who've tried to run businesses, and it's not like all of them do well. They know how to work hard. But business is everything. It's not just physical. It's mental. It's every single day in, day out. You're putting in the effort. You want to go build something. People are going to think you're fucking nuts. And I think that's part of it, is like, you have to be okay with that and okay with the challenges and things like that come your way, and build yourself up so strong mentally and physically to be able to endure all these challenges that come your way. And I think that's the thing, is business, you don't anticipate your challenges. When you go and play football, you kind of know that, like, if you're an O-lineman, you got to protect your QB. But running a business, it could be anything. It could be accounting, it could be legal, it could be in supply chain management, it could be anything across the realm. It could be technical, and you don't know it, but your job now is, you have whatever it is, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to figure that out. Yeah. And I think that's what's really hard about it, is you have to become an expert at solving any type of problem that exists. I think that's the beauty of it all as well.
Mm-hmm. It really does make you get like such a wide range of skills, and
100%.
You're just gonna have to figure out whatever problem comes at you. So, going back, you said in the second year of sneaker reselling, you got to 100K on StockX sales, and then with Amazon FBA, you got up to 4 million in sales by the end of it. Tell me about skills in scaling and effective strategies.
And I think, the biggest thing is when it comes to scaling a business, the biggest thing, like driving down, just stepping away from, businesses I ran, scaling really breaks down to a formula. And every single business, the formula is different. Whether it's, with sneakers, it was, trying to figure out, what bots and things like that we were using. And then, with Amazon FBA, it was like, how do we get the capital to go in and, churn over inventory? Because we had the relationships. But scaling looks different across every single business. But the one thing is that scaling really is just like, you at one point being an entrepreneur, like when you're running a business, you will know how to scale. Like, it's not that you go in and do the research and you there's some secret formula out there that they're hiding from you. It'll be very, very apparent on how to scale.
You just do more of it and allocate capital.
More. And it's figuring out whether it's even capital or not. Scaling is just figuring out what's inefficient and what can we make more efficient. How can we maximize our return on our investment, whether it's capital, whether it's labor, whether it's, the time as a founder that you're spending running the business. And I think that's kind of, where it gets a little tricky, is like, most of the times as an entrepreneur, you know what to do. But the second part of it is, are you doing what you know what to do? Like, are you doing what you know you should be doing? And that's the hardest part, is because
completely agree.
I think a lot of different businesses, a lot of different entrepreneurs know what they should be doing to scale, but then it's like, doing what you should be doing is really hard. Like, and I can tie it back to myself. Like, when it came down to Amazon FBA, like trying to figure out capital, like we were trying to look at like charge cards and all that stuff. And I knew deep down I needed to get a real loan, like, and figure out what that would look like in the APR, and figuring out how we could like leverage credit and business loans to be able to run the business. And I avoided that for so long because it's just like, oh, we need to have financial statements ready to go. Like, we could get denied if we don't have all of our, income sheets, balance, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, like all ready to go. Like, we could get denied of getting lending. And I was like, it was a laziness part of me. I was like scared to do it. But, I wasted time doing that. Like, if I just did that initially, instead of trying to use credit cards and then like buy less inventory and try to finagle with, American Express to see if we get, an extra, 2 or 3 weeks to pay our inventory off, like, I should have just done the thing. Even though I was talking about it and I knew that was the right thing to be doing, I was doing something else. And I think
Yeah.
that's when it comes down to business is it'll be very apparent what you need to do. And scaling is very, very apparent. But are you doing what you should actually be doing? Or are you trying to avoid the inevitable?
Right. That is so true.
100%.
That is so true.
And it's all really mental. And that's why I think, like, you know, when you read and you hear other people's stories, it's like it becomes really clear. It's like it's not you're not the only one facing the same problem. Like me, you, and, you know, over 100 kids in this building have probably gone through very similar things when it comes to scaling, like, and figuring out, like, what we should be doing. And, like, you know, deep down, we really do know what we should be doing. You don't need, you know, a McKinsey consultant to tell you how to scale your business. As an entrepreneur, as a founder, you really do know deep down.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's kind of important to understand that and then go in and execute on it. But executing is really tough, and that's what makes entrepreneurship so competitive. It's not an ideas game. It's an execution game.
Totally. 1% ideation, 99% perspiration.
100%.
Whatever the Thomas Edison quote. Anyways, out of curiosity, what were you selling on Amazon FBA?
So we were doing a lot of wholesale when it came down to, like, Hoka's, On Clouds, really footwear and clothing, because I already knew the niche, but then it was figuring out, like, what sneakers, what footwear was selling on Amazon, and knowing that I've worked with it in the past, like, I was just kind of used to working with shoes and stuff all day, and so it was like a super easy pivot. And we got in a little bit of the beauty side of things where we were selling like some perfumes and all that stuff, but there was, like, very specific rules on Amazon of, you know, selling and shipping and the requirements to fulfill that inventory. But our you know, kind of like our biggest mover was the clothing and the footwear. And that just was how we built our business. So.
And you were selling Hoka shoes?
Yeah.
So this is really interesting to me because, well, how do you source Hoka shoes at, like, wholesale prices? Because wouldn't they just sell them on Amazon themselves?
So it's interesting. A lot of companies don't want to deal with Amazon. And I think that's the most interesting part is, like, even though it's really profitable to sell on Amazon, Amazon is a whole beast in and of itself, really. Like, how they do pricing, how you know, sell your inventory on there. Like, there's multiple listings of the same exact product. Like, you have all your, you know, competitors on there. And it's interesting because I think because Amazon isn't just, like, you know, a straight shot like Shopify where, you know, you list all your product on your website and you start it up, get the domain, and you're ready to go. Amazon is like you're looking at reviews all day, like making sure that, you know, your listing is getting ranked properly. And then if you have competition on a listing, like the fact that with Amazon, like, some listings are broken, sometimes they break themselves, like the sizing, the colors, like getting all that stuff to all work. Amazon isn't like Shopify where it's super straightforward and easy. And then Amazon's fees is another part of the beast of, like, those fees change literally week over week, month over month. Like, they'll go up, they'll go down. Most of the time they go up. And it is insanely just complex to deal with. And so a lot of brands have avoided it. They'd rather just go direct to customer through their own website, like a Nike, for example. But I think people are starting to realize that, you know, everybody uses Amazon. And that's where the volume kind of is, and that's what they should be. But that's what's created is, you know, this market for people to go in and do wholesale through Amazon is like, there are a lot of brands that just don't want to sell on Amazon because it's a lot of work. And I think that creates that opportunity of, like, you can go in and become a seller and be able to sell these products. But it's all really relationship based, like knowing the right suppliers to be able to go in and get that inventory.
Yeah. How did you get it from Hoka?
We work with suppliers that were kind of getting it directly from Hoka, so we would pay a little bit of a markup. And so we worked with an intermediary that would sell us inventory.
Oh, were they kind of acting as like a retail location?
No, they were full on, like, wholesale business. Like, they would supply, like, different retail stores, like running stores and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting.
I see.
Hoka's
It's interesting to get it from a middleman. But I'm guessing at the same time you're selling them on Amazon, they're also selling them on their own website.
Yeah.
So
that's really
what was the price difference?
Amazon was weird because it was a Wild West, maybe like while I was senior year in high school. That was 2021 to 2022. Like junior year, senior year was a Wild West on Amazon because, like, you go on Zappos, which is an Amazon website, you could buy Hoka's for $140. But if you buy it from Amazon, which is just a different URL, Same exact buying process. But
Yeah.
you buy from there and prices would be like 180, 190, 200. And prices go up and down.
What the heck?
People price them on and off, and it's insane, like, how these markets kind of exist. But where there is demand, there will be sellers, and there will be buyers.
Man. This has been such an interesting conversation. My brain is getting foggy, if I'm being honest. But you are freaking on it.
Yeah.
Like, you've been on it with every single freaking question.
Dude, I love talking about the business side of things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the competitive nature in me is like, I hate to touch on like what I'm working on right now. Like, even with Viper, like, I might even ask you to cut the intro a little bit on like what it is. Cause like, I just, when I'm building something, it's me, it's me versus competition right now. And like, we're all racing to get to it first. And like, I'm all in on it. And it just, it's created this like competitive mindset where it's like being like, being like a Cincinnati of like, you don't want your competition to know what plays you're even thinking about playing, like, or what is, who the next recruit you're looking about bringing on is. Like, you don't want them to know. And I think that's the thing is it's just created this like just competitive beast of like every single day, I just 24/7 game, dude. And like, I love this shit. Like, that's just the beauty of it is when you fall in love with what you do and you fall in love with running a business and being a good entrepreneur, it's like, shit's not always going to go your way. Like, I've had very like, really bad things happen over the course of the last, couple of years running a business. Like, I've had huge ups, huge downs. I've had, other problems outside of business going on, that have, created changes. And I mean, the biggest thing is like, I've really kind of like learned this on my own, and my dad has really helped me. It's just like, not every single day you wake up, it's going to all go your way. And everybody's tired. Everybody's working just as hard. But it's just, can you just keep staying consistent? Even when things, don't really go your way with running the business. And it's created this competitive nature that's just allowed me, like, to be really successful. But it's fun for me. Like, the sacrifices that most entrepreneurs have to make, especially at a young age, being in college, to be able to go in and run a business. When I go to bed, like, I'm at peace with the sacrifices I've made. And I think that's really it. It's just, I've known that, like, this is what I love to do, and I'll make the sacrifice I have to make to be able to do it every single day.
Yeah.
And, anything could happen. I could, after a night out, or, I could wake up the next day just super tired, or, I get some bad news. And nothing will stop me from being at the mill, at the office, at 9 a.m. in the morning, because you cannot stop that. It's something I've done for the last couple of years of being in school while I've been here versus not when I was studying abroad. Like, I've just done it, and you can't stop me from doing that like day over day. And it's part of like the core belief system I operate on. It's part of my operating system day by day. Whatever happens, but I get to the office at 9 a.m. And I think that's what entrepreneurship really boils down to, is you have to have the belief that you believe in and your work ethic, that regardless of what happens, you get the work done the next day. Whether it's, you got the best news of your life and you're celebrating, or you got the worst news of your life and like you're sad about it and you're looking to process it. You just have to get up the next day and get the job done, because there's people counting on you and people believing in you that you cannot let down.
Yeah, man. That monologue just like lit a competitive fire inside of me.
Dude, you gotta go and compete, man. Dude, it's a 24/7 game, man. I know some guys working right now, and I'm like, dude, I'm fired up, ready to get back to work. Like tonight, I think probably leave the office probably around like 11:30, 12, and then take care of some business stuff, head to bed by like 1:32, and I'm back up, hoping to try to get up early tomorrow at 7:38, so I can have a little bit of extra time to deal with some other stuff that I need to work on with school and all of that before the day starts.
All right. Well, we're gonna do something interesting. Ask a question, which I'll ask to Andrew, our next guest, next episode.
I think, knowing kind of Marasco a little bit, I think the one question I would ask is, how did he build up the confidence to go in and compete in an industry, especially when it comes to like trading and like investing and like operating like the hedge fund, to my knowledge, that he used to run? Like, how did he build up the confidence to go in and do that? Especially when you're in an industry where your barriers to entry and your competition is, Wall Street Titans who have been doing this for 40 years. Like, how do you muster up the confidence and the strength and the track record and to be able to go in and do that, especially being so young and being, you know, so successful at it once you do it? Like, how do you have that kind of beast inside you going and compete?
Yeah. All right. Well, Sid, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast today. Is there anything that you want to give to the listeners?
I think, you know, one just takeaway point, I think we bounce, you know, we close off that, I think is just, you know, if you have something that you want to do, don't let anybody stop you from doing it or tell you that you cannot do it. And don't just talk about doing the thing. You know, whether it's building a business or, you know, whether it's whether it's school, whether it's, you know, competitive, whether it's you're an athlete, whatever it is. If you have something that you want to do, just go out there and do it. Don't waste time listening to people that tell you that you can't do it, tell you that, you know, there's all these things stopping you. Just go out there and just compete. And don't listen to the noise and just do what you love to do. And I think when you do that every single day, there's no way that you can be successful. And just remember, success is what it means to you and not to everybody else out there.
Sweet. All right, that's a good way to wrap it up. Thanks a lot for coming on. Yes, sir.